She was just a broke waitress serving coffee at midnight when a customer asked her to dinner. She turned him down gently, told him he looked like a man who'd forgotten how to live. What she didn't know, he was one of the most dangerous mafia boss in the city. And her rejection made him feel human for the first time in years. The rain hit Manhattan like a punishment. Renji Sakamoto watched the drops slash sideways across the taxi window, turning Brooklyn's streets into rivers of neon and shadow. 3 weeks in America, and he still wasn't used to how loud everything was. The sirens, the construction, the way people shouted into their phones like the whole city needed to hear their business. In Tokyo, power whispered. Here it screamed. Pull over, he said in English, his accent making the words sound harder than he intended. The driver glanced nervously in the rearview mirror. Renji knew what he saw. A man in a perfectly pressed black suit, too formal for midnight, too expensive for this neighborhood. Sharp cheekbones. Eyes that didn't blink enough. The kind of face that made people look away. You sure? There's nothing around here, but here is fine. The taxi stopped in front of a diner with a flickering sign that read Rosie's in pink cursive. One of the letters was dead. The place looked like it had survived decades by sheer stubbornness alone. Cracked vinyl booths visible through rain-streaked windows, a counter with peeling chrome edges, walls the color of old coffee. Perfect. Nobody would look for him here. Renji paid without waiting for change and stepped into the storm. By the time he pushed through the diner's door, his hair was plastered to his forehead, rain dripping from his nose. A small bell chimed overhead, cheerful, oblivious. The place smelled like bacon grease and burnt coffee. A tired-looking man sat in the corner booth, a newspaper spread before him. An elderly woman nursed a cup of tea near the window. Behind the counter, a waitress was refilling sugar dispensers, humming something off-key. She looked up when the door closed. Oh wow, you're soaked. Her voice was warm, concerned in that easy American way that still startled him. Grab any seat, honey. I'll get you some napkins. Renji stood frozen for a moment. Not because of her words, he'd learned English years ago, could negotiate arms deals and territorial disputes in 3 languages, but because of the way she smiled. Like she actually meant it. Like he was just another customer and not a man with 17 confirmed kills and a price on his head in 2 countries. He slid into a booth near the back, where he could watch both the entrance and the kitchen door. Old habits. The waitress appeared with a small stack of paper napkins and a menu. Up close, she was younger than he'd first thought, mid-20s maybe, with dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail and eyes that were either green or gray depending on the light. She wore the standard diner uniform, but there was a small pin on her collar that said Claire in chipped enamel. Coffee? She asked, already pulling a pot from somewhere. Yes. Black. Man after my own heart. She poured with the kind of efficiency that came from doing something 1,000 times. You know what you want to eat, or do you need a minute? Just coffee. Suit yourself, but the pie's actually good tonight. Lemon meringue. I won't lie about the other flavors, but that one's solid, she grinned, tucking the pot under her arm. I'll be around if you change your mind. She started to turn away, and Renji heard himself speak before his brain approved it. You work here often? It was a stupid question. She was wearing a name tag. Clearly she worked here. Claire glanced back, eyebrows raised slightly. Every night this week and most of last month. Why, you planning to become a regular? Perhaps. Something in her expression shifted. Not quite wariness, but a sharpening of attention. She'd probably learned to read men fast in a place like this. Learned which ones were harmless and which ones weren't. Renji wasn't used to being studied. Usually people looked away. Well, she said slowly, regulars get a discount on refills. So there's that. She walked back to the counter, and Renji wrapped his hands around the coffee mug, feeling the heat seep into his palms. Outside, the rain continued its assault. He should leave. His security team was waiting 3 blocks over, probably irritated that he'd slipped away again. They didn't understand that sitting in a bulletproof SUV felt like wearing a coffin. But something about this place, about the chipped counter and the burnt coffee, and the waitress who smiled like she'd never heard the word consequences, made his chest feel strange.
Tight.
Like something was trying to claw its way out. 20 minutes passed. The old man paid his bill and left. The elderly woman fell asleep with her head against the window. Claire moved between tables with a practiced rhythm, wiping down surfaces, refilling napkin dispensers, humming that same off-key tune. Renji watched her work and felt something he hadn't experienced in 8 years. He felt lonely. Not alone. He'd been alone since the coup failed, since Kanda had turned half his men against him, and he'd fled Japan with nothing but the clothes on his back and enough money to start over. He'd built his network again from scratch here in New York, reclaimed some of his power, reminded people why they should fear the name Sakamoto. But lonely? That was different. That was dangerous. When Claire came back to refill his cup, third time, he'd lost count. He made a decision that would later seem insane. "Would you have dinner with me?" The words came out wrong. Too formal. Like he was proposing a business arrangement instead of asking a woman on a date.
Claire blinked,
Set down the coffee pot, tilted her head with an expression that might have been amusement or pity. "Is that a serious question?" "Yes." "Okay." She leaned against the edge of his booth, and he caught the scent of coffee and something floral, cheap shampoo probably. "I'm going to be honest with you, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way." Renji waited. He was good at waiting. "You seem like a nice guy," Claire said, which was the most incorrect assessment anyone had made of him in years. "But I don't date men who look like they've forgotten how to live." The words hit him like a slap. Forgotten how to. Yeah, her voice was gentle, which somehow made it worse. "You've been sitting there for almost half an hour, and you haven't relaxed once. You watch the door like someone's going to kick it in. You hold your coffee cup like it might explode. And you asked me to dinner the way someone might ask for directions to a funeral home," she shrugged. "Whatever you're carrying around, you need to put it down before you invite someone else to help hold it. You know?" Renji's face felt hot. When was the last time he'd blushed? Had he ever blushed? "I apologize," he managed. "I didn't mean to." "Don't apologize. Just take care of yourself, okay?" She picked up the coffee pot and smiled again, but this time it was sad. "And maybe order some actual food next time. You look like you haven't eaten in days." She walked away, and Renji sat there feeling something he hadn't felt since he was 17 years old, standing in front of his father's desk after failing his first assignment. Embarrassment.
Pure burning embarrassment.
He was reaching for his wallet when the door exploded open. Not literally, but the force of it slamming back against the wall made everyone jump. 2 men in dark clothing rushed in, shouting in Japanese, and Renji's hand moved automatically to the gun at his hip. But these weren't enemies. These were his men.
"Boss.
"We need to go now." Gunfire cracked somewhere outside, 3 shots, close enough to make the diner's windows rattle. Claire dropped behind the counter with a yelp. The elderly woman woke up screaming. And Renji was already moving, letting his security pull him toward the back exit, through the kitchen where a startled cook dove out of their way. The last thing he heard before the door slammed shut was Claire's voice, shaky but alive. What the hell was that? In the alley, rain hammering down, being shoved into the SUV with his team shouting about rival factions and territory disputes and how he needed to stop taking these risks. All Renji could hear was her rejection, playing on repeat in his mind. Men who look like they've forgotten how to live. The car peeled away into the storm, and Renji stared at his reflection in the rain-soaked window. For the first time in years, he wondered if she was right. Claire's alarm didn't go off. She woke up at noon with a crick in her neck and the vague memory of dreams filled with gunfire and Japanese words she didn't understand. Her phone had 17 missed calls from Rosie, her manager, and 3 texts that all said the same thing. "Don't come in. Police everywhere." She called back immediately. "Thank God," Rosie answered on the first ring. "You okay?"
"Yeah, I'm fine."
"What's going on?" "You didn't see the news?" Rosie's voice cracked. Claire, there were 2 bodies found in the alley behind the diner.
Shot.
They're saying it was gang-related. The coffee cup slipped from Claire's hand, shattering on her kitchen floor. What? They've got the whole block taped off. Police are reviewing our security footage, asking questions about customers last night. Did you see anything weird? Anyone suspicious? Claire thought about the man in the expensive suit. The way his men had burst in, the gunfire, the chaos. She'd spent the rest of the night giving statements to cops who didn't seem very interested in what a waitress had to say. I already talked to the police, she said quietly. Told them everything I knew, which was nothing useful. It was mostly true. She didn't know who those men were. Didn't know why they'd been shooting. The man in the suit had been polite, awkward even. Probably just some businessman in the wrong place at the wrong time. Right. Well, we're closed for at least 3 days while they investigate, Rosie sighed. I'll call you when we can reopen. And Claire, be careful, okay? This neighborhood's getting worse. After they hung up, Claire stood in her tiny apartment staring at broken ceramic and spilled coffee. She'd worked at Rosie's for 2 years. It was the safest job she'd ever had. Boring, predictable, the kind of place where the most dramatic thing that happened was someone complaining about cold fries. Now there were bodies in the alley. She needed to see it for herself. An hour later, Claire stood across the street from the diner, watching police officers move in and out of the yellow tape. News vans were packing up, the story already old, moving on to the next tragedy. 2 men nobody knew, killed in a dispute nobody understood. Just another violent night in Brooklyn. She was about to leave when she remembered her locker. Her tips were in there, $300 she desperately needed for rent. If the diner was closed for days, she couldn't afford to wait. She caught the eye of a young officer standing near the tape. Excuse me, I work here. Can I just grab something from inside real quick? He looked skeptical, but eventually let her through after checking her ID. The diner felt wrong in daylight with all the lights off. Haunted. She moved quickly to the back room where employees kept their things. Her locker was open. Claire's heart jumped. Had someone broken in? But no, her jacket was still there, her spare shoes. On the small shelf inside was a white envelope she didn't recognize. She opened it. Her tips were inside. All $300, neatly counted and organized. But there was something else too, a small origami crane, folded from pale blue paper, delicate and perfect. No note.
No explanation.
Just the crane. Claire's hands trembled as she held it up to the light. Who would have done this? How would they even know where her locker was? The man in the suit flashed through her mind. Those strange, intense eyes. The way he'd asked her to dinner like he was negotiating a hostage situation.
No.
That was crazy. He was just a customer. He didn't even know her name, beyond what was on her tag. She pocketed the money and the crane and left quickly, telling herself it was probably just Rosie being nice. Even though Rosie would have left a note. Even though Rosie didn't know origami. Across the city, in a penthouse with bulletproof windows, Renji stared at a laptop screen showing CCTV footage from the diner. There, Candace said, pointing. That's when the Chin brothers spotted you. They must have been casing nearby businesses, saw you through the window. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Renji sitting in the booth. Claire leaning against the table, smiling. And this is the problem, Candace continued, clicking to another angle. They got this shot too. The camera had caught the moment perfectly. Claire's face clearly visible, Renji's expression softer than it had any right to be, the 2 of them looking like exactly what they weren't. The Chens sent this to their people an hour ago, Candace said. They're calling her your American girlfriend. They think you've gone soft, that she's a weakness they can exploit. Renji's jaw tightened. She's nobody. They don't know that. And now they're looking for her. The rational part of Renji's brain, the part that had kept him alive through 3 gang wars and 2 assassination attempts, said the solution was simple. 1 bullet. Make it look like an accident. Eliminate the loose end before she became a problem. But when he closed his eyes, he saw her smile, heard her voice, Men who look like they've forgotten how to live. I want her brought in, Renji said. Candace stared at him. Boss. Before the Chens find her. Bring her somewhere safe. Don't hurt her. That's insane. If you protect her, you're proving them right, that she matters to you. If I kill her, I prove I'm exactly what she said I was. Renji stood, straightening his suit jacket. A man who's forgotten how to live. This is a mistake. Then it's my mistake to make. Renji looked at the frozen image on the screen. Claire's face caught mid-laugh, unaware that her life had just been ripped in half. Find her. Tonight. And Kanda? Yes, boss. I meant what I said. Don't hurt her. Kanda left, shaking his head, and Renji returned to the window. Somewhere out there in the city's chaos, a waitress was going about her day with no idea that she'd become the most dangerous thing in his world. Not because she meant something to him, but because his enemies thought she did. And in his world, perception was the only truth that mattered. Claire's second job was at a 24-hour laundromat 6 blocks from her apartment. She'd picked up the shift to cover the rent money she'd lose from the diner being closed. It wasn't glamorous, mostly watching drunk people try to figure out how quarters worked, but it paid cash under the table and the owner didn't ask questions. Her shift ended at 2 in the morning. The walk home was usually fine. Brooklyn at night had its own rhythm, late-night bodegas with their lights blazing, the occasional taxi splashing through puddles, the distant sound of the subway rumbling beneath the streets. Claire had made this walk 100 times. Tonight felt different. She couldn't explain it. Just a tightness between her shoulder blades, like being watched. Twice she turned around, expecting to see someone following her. But the street was empty except for a homeless man sleeping in a doorway and a cat digging through trash. Get it together, she muttered to herself, walking faster. She was half a block from her apartment when the van pulled up. It happened so fast, she didn't have time to scream. The side door slid open, hands grabbed her arms, and she was yanked inside before her brain could process what was happening. Someone pressed a cloth over her mouth, sweet-smelling, chemical, and the world tilted sideways. Don't fight, a voice said in accented English. Boss's orders.
No harm.
Then nothing. Claire woke up thinking she'd been drugged and murdered and was now experiencing some kind of afterlife designed specifically to confuse her. Because she was lying on the softest bed she'd ever felt in her life, wrapped in sheets that probably cost more than her monthly rent, in a room with floor-to-ceiling windows showing a view of the Hudson River that belonged in a magazine. She sat up too fast. Her head spun, stomach lurching. The room was massive, minimalist furniture, expensive-looking art on the walls, everything in shades of black and white and gray. Like someone had hired a designer and said, make it look like money but remove all evidence of human emotion. The door opened. The man from the diner walked in, carrying a tea tray. He looked different in daylight, or whatever light this was, the sky outside suggesting early morning. Without the rain and the shadows, Claire could see him clearly. Late 30s maybe, with sharp features and dark hair pushed back from his face. He moved with the kind of precision that came from military training or dance or something equally disciplined. He set the tea tray on a side table and turned to face her. You're awake.
Good.
You should drink something. The chloroform can cause dehydration. Claire stared at him, then at the room, then back at him. Did you just say chloroform?
Yes.
I apologize for the method, but time was... You kidnapped me. Her voice cracked on the last word, fear and fury mixing into something combustible. You drugged me and kidnapped me, and now you're offering me tea, eh? It's green tea. Antioxidants. I don't care if it's liquid gold. What the hell is wrong with you? She scrambled off the bed, putting distance between them. Her legs felt shaky, but adrenaline was doing its job. She looked around for a weapon, something, anything, but the room was too clean. No loose objects. Nothing except expensive furniture bolted down. The man, she remembered his men calling him boss, just stood there, watching her with those unsettling eyes. My name is Renji Sakamoto, he said calmly. You're my home. You're safe here. Safe? Safe. You abducted me. To protect you. From what? From the people who want to use you to hurt me. Claire laughed, high and slightly hysterical. I don't even know you. We talked for like 10 minutes. You asked me out, I said no. And now where even am I? Manhattan. Tribeca. Of course. Of course, he had a penthouse in Tribeca. Look, Claire said, forcing her voice steady. I don't know what kind of situation you think this is, but I'm nobody. I'm a waitress. I work 2 jobs and live in a studio apartment with a broken radiator. Nobody wants to hurt you because of me. This is insane. 2 nights ago, after I left the diner, 2 men were killed in the alley behind it. I know. I saw the police. They were killed by my people because they were waiting to kill me. But before they died, they took photographs.
Of me.
And of you. Renji's expression didn't change, but something in his voice made Claire's skin go cold. They sent those photographs to their organization. Now those people believe you matter to me, and they will find you and hurt you to send a message. But I don't matter to you. You don't even know me. That distinction is irrelevant to them. Claire's back hit the window. So what? I'm just supposed to stay here? For how long? A few days. Perhaps a week. Until the situation resolves. And then you go back to your life. I'll ensure you have enough money to relocate if you wish. A new identity, if necessary. He said it so matter-of-factly, like he was discussing a grocery list instead of dismantling her entire existence. This is insane, Claire whispered. You're insane. Perhaps. Renji moved to the window beside her, looking out at the river. But I'm also keeping you alive. I want to leave.
No.
You can't keep me prisoner. He turned to face her fully, and for the first time, she saw something other than cold calculation in his eyes. Something that might have been regret. If you step outside, he said quietly, you die before you reach the corner. They're watching this building. Waiting. The only reason you're breathing right now is because you're here, under my protection. Claire searched his face for any sign of deception. But all she found was certainty. The absolute conviction of someone who'd seen enough death to know exactly how it worked. How do I know you're telling the truth? She asked, hating how small her voice sounded. You don't, he stepped back, giving her space. But you're intelligent enough to remember the gunfire. The bodies. And you're intelligent enough to understand that normal businessmen don't have those problems. He walked to the door, pausing with his hand on the handle. The bathroom is through that door. There are clothes in the closet that should fit. Food in the kitchen. All of it is yours. His eyes met hers one last time. I know you don't believe me yet, but I truly am sorry, Claire, for all of this. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Claire sank to the floor, her whole body shaking, and realized he'd never told her his name. She'd never told him hers. Day 1, Claire didn't speak to him at all. She stayed in the bedroom, testing the windows locked, the door unlocked but pointless. Where would she go? And her phone, confiscated, apparently, while she was unconscious. She ate the food left outside her door only when hunger became painful. She refused the tea. Day 2, she started talking. Mostly insults. Does the whole crime lord aesthetic require everything to be gray? She called out when Renji passed through the living room. Or is this just your natural lack of personality showing? He didn't respond, just continued to his office with a laptop under his arm. Strong, silent type. Classic. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Let me guess. Tragic backstory, dead mentor, revenge quest? Or is that too cliché even for you? I have work to do, he said without looking back. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I interrupting your busy schedule of ruining lives?
The door closed.
Claire smiled grimly. Small victories. By day 3, the penthouse started feeling less like a prison and more like a very expensive hamster cage. She'd explored every room, 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a kitchen that looked like it had never been used, and Renji's office that stayed locked. The view was spectacular. The silence was suffocating. She found him in the kitchen that evening, making tea with the focused precision of a ritual. "Do you ever eat actual food?" she asked. "Or do you just photosynthesize?" "There's food in the refrigerator." "Yeah, I've seen it. Very impressive. You have like 6 types of mineral water and some vegetables that look like they're aspiring to be museum pieces." She opened a cabinet, finding it empty except for more tea. "This is sad. This is like aggressively sad." "I don't cook." Clearly, Claire pulled out a chair and sat down without invitation. "So, what's your deal? And don't give me that mysterious crime boss routine. You kidnapped me. The least you can do is explain why someone wants you dead badly enough to kill random waitresses." Renji poured hot water over tea leaves, watching them unfurl. "I led an organization in Tokyo. There was a dispute over territory and methods. I lost. They exiled me. That's the shortest version of a story I've ever heard. It's all you need to know." "What I need to know," Claire said, leaning forward, "is whether you're actually keeping me safe or just keeping me." His hand paused mid-pour. "What's the difference? One has an end date." He set down the kettle and finally looked at her. Really looked like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "You're not afraid of me." "Oh, I'm terrified," she corrected. "But I grew up in foster care. Spent my childhood being moved between homes where people either ignored me or hurt me. I learned pretty fast that showing fear just makes it worse." She shrugged. "So, yeah, you scare me. But I've been scared before." Something shifted in his expression. "That's why you work 2 jobs. No family to help. No family at all. My parents died when I was 6. Car accident. After that, I was just," she waved a hand vaguely, "a problem the system had to solve. And the system's not great at solving problems. I'm sorry." "Don't be. I survived." "That's more than some kids get." Claire stood, restless. "What about you? Where's your family in all this?"
Japan.
"Where they will stay." His voice went cold. "I haven't spoken to them in 8 years. It's safer that way." "Safer for who?" "For them." The way he said it, flat, final, told Claire more than any explanation could. He wasn't just exiled. He was erased, cut off from everything that made him human. "That's lonely," she said quietly. "It's necessary. It's still lonely." Renji picked up his tea and walked toward his office. But he paused at the doorway, not turning around. "You should sleep. Tomorrow might be difficult." "Why, what's tomorrow?" "The day I find out if my plan is working." He left before she could ask what that meant. Day 4 started with screaming. Claire bolted awake to the sound of something crashing, followed by angry voices in Japanese. She crept to her door, heart hammering, and peered out. Renji was in the living room, arguing with a tall man in an expensive suit. No, not arguing. Fighting. The other man had a knife, slashing in quick, brutal arcs. Renji dodged, grabbed a lamp, used it to deflect the blade. The knife found its target anyway. Renji grunted as the blade sliced across his forearm. Blood spattered the white carpet. The other man said something in Japanese. It sounded like a threat, and Renji responded in kind, his voice low and dangerous. Then, impossibly, Renji disarmed him. One smooth movement, and the knife was skittering across the floor. 2 more, and the man was on the ground, Renji's knee on his chest. "Leave," Renji said in English. "Tell Kanda," I said no. The man scrambled up and ran, leaving the door open. Renji stood there, breathing hard, blood dripping from his arm onto the expensive floor. He swayed slightly. "Okay," Claire said, stepping out. "Bathroom."
Now.
He turned, seeming surprised to see her. "I'm fine. You're bleeding all over your minimalist aesthetic. Move." To her shock, he obeyed. In the bathroom, under fluorescent lights, the cut looked worse than she'd hoped but better than she'd feared. Deep but clean. Claire grabbed the first aid kit from under the sink. Of course, he had a fully stocked first aid kit, and started cleaning the wound. "You don't have to do this," Renji said quietly. Shut up, Claire. I said shut up. Her hands were steadier than she'd expected.
Who was that?
Someone who thinks I'm making mistakes. Are you? He didn't answer. Just watched her work with that same puzzled expression, like she was a math problem that didn't make sense. Why would you help me? He asked, and she realized he'd switched to Japanese. Just a few words, but clear enough. Why would you help a monster? Claire looked up, meeting his eyes. Because monsters bleed too. For the first time since she'd met him, Renji's careful mask cracked. Just for a second, she saw something raw underneath. Confusion, gratitude, loneliness, so deep it looked like drowning. Then it was gone.
He was stone again.
But his hand, when she bandaged it, was shaking. Thank you, he whispered. Claire finished tying off the gauze. You're welcome. Now tell me what's really happening. This time, he did. The truth, as Renji explained it over cold tea and dawnlight, was worse than Claire had imagined. The Chun brothers weren't the real threat. They were pawns. The real danger was a man named Toru Kanda, Renji's former lieutenant, his right hand, the person he'd trusted most in the world. Kanda had orchestrated the coup that destroyed everything. And now he was in New York, rebuilding the same organization Renji was trying to reassemble. He wants me dead, Renji said flatly. But more than that, he wants me humiliated. Broken. He wants to prove I'm weak. And I'm the proof, Claire finished. Yes. She should have been angry. Should have thrown something. Instead, she just felt tired. So what's the plan? I hide here forever while you two play chess with human lives. The plan is I end this.
Soon. How?
He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Claire stood, walked to the window. The city was waking up below, people going to jobs, living normal lives, completely unaware that men like Renji existed in the spaces between their everyday routines. I had a shift at the laundromat today, she said quietly. Would have made $60. Not much, but enough for groceries, she laughed, brittle. Weird what you miss when someone takes your life away. Claire. Don't. Just.
Don't.
She went back to her room and closed the door. Toru Kanda arrived at noon. Claire heard the commotion from her bedroom. Raised voices, Renji's calm tone cracking into something sharp. She crept to the door, pressing her ear against it. Completely lost your mind. A new voice, speaking English with a heavier accent than Renji's. Keeping her here? Protecting her? Do you understand what the others are saying? I don't care what they're saying. They're saying you've gone soft. That exile broke you. That the great Sakamoto Renji can't even eliminate one insignificant American girl? Kanda. I have followed you for 15 years. Through gang wars, through territory disputes, through exile. And now you throw it all away for a waitress you spoke to for 10 minutes. Claire's stomach dropped. This was Kanda, the betrayer, the man who wanted Renji dead. So why was he here? You don't understand the situation, Renji said, his voice dangerously quiet. I understand perfectly. You're letting emotions compromise strategy. Again. Just like Tokyo footsteps, Kanda pacing, probably. I came here to warn you. The Chens aren't the only ones interested in your girlfriend. I've been contacted by 3 other organizations. They all want to know about her. They all see weakness. Then let them see it. You can't mean that. I'm tired. Kanda, the exhaustion in Renji's voice made Claire's chest tight. Tired of killing. Tired of looking over my shoulder. Tired of being the ghost who destroys everything he touches. You're tired of being powerful. I'm tired of being empty. Silence. Then Kanda's laugh, cold, cruel. You know what?
Fine. Be weak.
Be empty. But don't drag the rest of us down with you. What are you? I have copies of the photos. All of them. The ones showing her face, your face. That pathetic moment when you looked at her like she was salvation instead of liability. Kanda's voice turned vicious. And I'm sending them everywhere. Every rival, every hungry young boss looking to make a name. By tonight, the whole underground will know exactly where to find her. You wouldn't. I already did. 20 minutes ago, before I came up here. Another laugh. So now you get to choose, boss. Reclaim your power, prove you're still ruthless by killing her yourself, or watch her die because you were too weak to do what was necessary. Kanda, I swear to God. You swear what? You'll kill me? You can't even kill her. Footsteps moving toward the door. I'll give you 24 hours. After that, whoever finds her first gets to deliver her head to your doorstep. Either way, the empire you're building dies today. The door slammed. Claire stood frozen, her whole body numb. This was her fault. Not because she'd done anything wrong, but because she'd existed in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because a lonely man had asked her to dinner and she'd said no in a way that made him feel human for the first time in years. And now people were going to die. Maybe her. Probably him. All because of a conversation in a diner. She heard Renji punching something, the wall, maybe. Heard him swearing in Japanese, the words raw with fury and frustration. Heard the moment he stopped, breathing hard, pulling himself back together. Claire moved quickly and quietly. She'd spent years sneaking out of foster homes, learning to move without sound. The penthouse's front door was monitored, but there was a service entrance through the kitchen. She'd noticed it days ago, filed it away without knowing why. Now she knew. In the kitchen, she found cash in a drawer, emergency money, probably. She took just enough for a subway card and a hotel room. Left the rest. She wasn't a thief, even if she was a prisoner. The service door opened to a narrow stairwell, 23 floors down. She could do it. She was on the 10th floor landing when she heard Renji's voice echoing from above. Claire? Claire. She ran faster. By the time she hit the ground floor and burst out into a service alley, she could hear multiple sets of footsteps above. Renji's men, probably.
Searching.
Claire pulled her hood up and merged into the Manhattan crowd. She didn't have a plan, didn't know where to go. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She couldn't let Renji destroy himself trying to protect someone who was already destroying him.
If Kana wanted a target, fine.
She'd give him one. Just not the one he expected. Claire's plan lasted exactly 4 hours before falling apart. She'd gone to a phone store, bought a burner with some of the cash, and sent an anonymous text to a number she'd found scrawled on a piece of paper in Renji's office trash. Just an address, an abandoned lot in Queens, and a time. No explanation. The idea was simple. Make herself visible, draw the attention away from Renji, lead them somewhere he wasn't. Let them find her alone. Maybe they'd realize she was nobody worth the trouble. Maybe they'd just let her go. She'd never been good at understanding how criminals thought. The subway ride to Queens took forever. Claire watched every passenger, jumping at every sudden movement. A man in a business suit looked at her too long. A teenager with headphones kept glancing her way. By the time she reached her stop, her heart was trying to escape through her ribs. The abandoned lot was worse than she'd imagined. A stretch of cracked concrete and rusted chain-link fence, surrounded by warehouses that looked like they'd been dead for decades. Graffiti covered every surface. Broken glass glittered in the fading light. Claire was halfway across the lot when she realized her mistake. They were already there. 5 men materialized from the shadows, moving with the coordinated precision of people who'd done this before. They didn't rush.
Didn't need to.
They had her surrounded, cutting off every exit. Claire Evans, one of them said, consulting his phone like he was checking a shopping list. The boss's girlfriend. You're shorter than I expected. I'm not his girlfriend, Claire said, hating how her voice shook. I'm just a waitress. This is a misunderstanding. Sure it is, he smiled, and it was the smile of someone who enjoyed his work a little too much. That's why Sakamoto's been protecting you. That's why Kanda wants you dead. Because you're nobody. They moved closer. Claire's back hit a wall, literally the side of a warehouse. No more room to run. Please, she tried one more time. I don't know anything. I'm not worth. Gunfire shattered the air. But not aimed at her. One of the men dropped, then another. The remaining 3 spun, weapons drawn, and Claire saw him, Renji, emerging from behind a rusted container with a gun that looked like an extension of his hand. His face was a mask of cold fury. "Get away from her," he said quietly. "Sakamoto." The leader laughed. "You actually came for her. This is..." Renji shot him mid-sentence. Then everything became chaos. The remaining two opened fire, but Renji moved like water, fluid, inevitable. He dropped one with a shot to the leg, disarmed the other with a move so fast Claire's eyes couldn't track it. Within seconds, the threat was neutralized. But the sound of gunfire had attracted attention. More men appeared. Not Chen's this time. These wore the same type of dark clothing as Renji's security team. Claire's relief lasted exactly 2 seconds before she heard Renji's sharp intake of breath.
"No. Kanda, you didn't."
"Sorry, boss," one of them said, raising his weapon. "Nothing personal. Just better business." They were his own men. Kanda had turned them. Renji moved to shield Claire, but he wasn't fast enough. The first shot caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. The second would have hit his chest if Claire hadn't grabbed his arm and yanked him sideways. "Run," he shouted, returning fire. They ran. Through the lot, between warehouses, Renji leaving a trail of blood behind them. Claire could hear shouts, footsteps, the terrible certainty of pursuit. They rounded a corner and nearly fell into darkness. A subway entrance, abandoned, the stairs leading down into black nothing. "There." Claire pulled him forward. They stumbled down cracked stairs, through a broken turnstile, onto a platform that hadn't seen trains in years. The tunnel stretched ahead, disappearing into shadow. Renji collapsed against a support beam, breathing hard. Blood soaked through his shirt, dripping onto the dirty concrete. "Keep going," he gasped. "They'll..." "Shut up." Claire stripped off his jacket with shaking hands, pressing it against his shoulder. The wound was bad through and through, but bleeding too much. "Put pressure here. Press hard." "Claire, you need to." I said, "Shut up." Voices echoed from above. Their pursuers had reached the entrance. Claire dragged Renji deeper into the tunnel, into the darkness where ancient tracks disappeared into nothing. Found an alcove, some kind of maintenance space, and pulled him inside. Held the jacket against his wound with both hands while he tried to stay conscious. "I'm sorry," he whispered. This is my fault. All of it. Stop talking. Save your strength."
"No."
"I need to." His breath hitched. "I need to say this. In case. In case nothing. You're not dying in an abandoned subway tunnel. I won't allow it." But his eyes were unfocused now, staring at something she couldn't see. "I'm tired, Claire. So tired. I've spent 15 years being feared. Being the ghost who kills everything he touches. And I thought," he laughed, weak and broken. "I thought maybe if I saved you, just once, I could be something else. Someone else." "You're someone else," Claire's eyes burned. "You're the idiot who asked a waitress to dinner. The guy who makes tea like it's a religious ceremony. The person who kept me safe even when it destroyed everything. I didn't keep you safe. I brought you here. To this. You came for me. When you should have run. Should have let them have me. You came." She pressed harder against the wound, feeling his blood warm and sick between her fingers. "That's not a ghost. That's a person." Footsteps in the tunnel.
"Close now."
Too close. Renji's hand covered hers. "There's a service exit. 50 yards ahead. Follow the tracks. You can."
We
can make it. Claire. Together or not at all." The footsteps stopped. Somewhere in the darkness, someone chambered around. And Claire realized that all her running, all her plans, had led them here, to this moment in the dark, bleeding and cornered, where the only thing left was the truth. She wasn't running anymore. Neither was he. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The gunshot never came. Instead, a voice echoed through the tunnel. "Boss, it's Yamada. Don't shoot." Renji's whole body tensed. "Yamada? You're supposed to be. Canda's dead, sir. Footsteps approached, and a man emerged from the shadows. Older, scarred, wearing the same dark suit as the others. But his gun was lowered. We took care of him, and the ones he turned. It's over. Claire felt Renji sag against her, relief and blood loss mixing into something dangerous. How? Not everyone believed his lies. Some of us remembered who actually earned our loyalty. Yamada's eyes flicked to Claire, then back. We need to move. Police are coming. There were a lot of bodies. The next hour blurred together. Strong hands helping Renji up. A car appearing from nowhere. Claire pressed into the back seat, still holding pressure on Renji's wound while Yamada drove through streets that seemed designed specifically for running from consequences. They ended up at a private clinic, the kind that didn't ask questions or keep records. A doctor with steady hands and tired eyes stitched Renji up while Claire sat in the waiting room, blood drying on her hands, reality finally catching up. She'd almost died. Renji had almost died. People were dead because of her. She was shaking when Renji emerged, arm in a sling, moving carefully. He sat down beside her, without speaking. I want to go home, Claire whispered. I know. My apartment.
My jobs.
My life. I want it back. You can't. She turned to look at him. His face was pale, exhausted, but his eyes were clear, decided. Canda's dead, but he did what he promised, Renji said quietly. Your face is everywhere now. Every organization in 3 states knows who you are, what you look like, and that I cared enough to start a war over you. He reached into his pocket with his good hand, pulled out a thick envelope. This is a new identity. Social security card, driver's license, birth certificate. Bank account with enough money to start over anywhere you want. Claire stared at the envelope like it was a snake. You're erasing me. I'm saving you. By destroying who I am. By giving you a chance to be someone else. Someone safe, his voice cracked slightly. Someone who doesn't have to look over her shoulder for the rest of her life. And you? What happens to you? I disappear too. Something in the way he said it made Claire's stomach drop. Renji. There's going to be an explosion tonight. At the Hudson River docks. They'll find bodies, people who crossed me, people who crossed Kanda. Enough evidence to convince everyone that I died cleaning up the mess, he smiled, and it was the saddest thing she'd ever seen. The ghost finally becomes a ghost. That's not. You can't. Claire grabbed his good arm. Come with me. We'll both disappear. Start over somewhere together. Claire. You said you were tired of being empty. You said you wanted to be something else. So be something else. With me. I can't. He turned to face her fully, and she saw tears in his eyes, the first real emotion breaking through all that careful control. A man like me can't walk into the daylight. I've done things. Terrible things. Things that don't wash away with new identities and fresh starts. You deserve better than someone who'll always have blood on his hands. I don't care. You should. He stood, swaying slightly, and pulled something from his pocket. The origami crane. The one he'd left in her locker a lifetime ago. But now it was stained, red seeping into the blue paper. Keep this. Remember that once, for a few days, someone tried to be more than what he was. Because of you. Renji, please. He kissed her forehead. Gentle. Final. Thank you, he whispered against her skin. For seeing me as human. Even when I'd forgotten how. Then he walked away, and Claire couldn't follow because Yamada was there, a kind hand on her shoulder, steering her toward a different car and a different future. She screamed his name, begged, fought. But he never looked back. The explosion happened at 3 a.m. Claire watched it on the news from a hotel room in Philadelphia, her new ID spread across the bed like pieces of a life she'd never chosen. The reporter spoke with practiced concern about gang violence, about justice, about the 14 bodies recovered from the scene. One of them, they said, might be Renji Sakamoto, notorious crime boss, exile, ghost. Dental records would take weeks. but witnesses reported seeing him enter the warehouse minutes before the blast. The screen showed flames reflecting off black water. Claire held the bloody origami crane and cried until dawn. By morning, she was someone else entirely. New name, new life. No connections to a waitress who'd worked at Rosie's diner and said the wrong thing to the wrong man on a rainy night. That girl was gone. Rinji Sakamoto was gone. And Claire, whoever she was now, was utterly, completely alone. She caught a bus heading west, towards cities she'd never seen, carrying nothing but an envelope of blood money and a paper crane that proved, once, someone had tried to save her. Even if it meant losing himself completely. The bus pulled away as the sun rose, and Claire watched Philadelphia disappear behind her, taking with it the last piece of a story that should never have been hers. But was. 6 months later, Claire stood in front of Rosie's diner and didn't recognize it. The renovations had transformed the place. New paint, new sign, all the letters working now, new booths with vinyl that didn't have duct tape holding it together. The owners had used the insurance money to rebuild, and somehow, impossibly, they'd asked her to come back as manager.
Claire Reyes, her new ID said.
Close enough to her real name that she still responded to it, different enough that searches came up empty. She'd spent 6 months in California, working in restaurants, living in motel rooms, carrying that bloody origami crane in her pocket like a talisman. Every night she'd unfold it carefully, study the creases, remember hands that had folded it with such precision. Then she'd fold it back up and wonder if she was keeping a memorial or a promise. When Rosie called about the job, Claire had almost said no. Going back felt dangerous, stupid, like tempting fate. But she was tired of running. And maybe, just maybe, some part of her hoped he'd kept running too. That somewhere out there, Rinji Sakamoto had found whatever men like him found when they stopped being ghosts. The diner opened on a Tuesday. Claire spent the first week learning new systems, training new waitresses, trying to remember that she was a manager now and not the girl who'd served coffee to lonely men at midnight. The customers were different too. The neighborhood had changed, gotten younger, louder. Brooklyn was always becoming something else. On Friday, a man came in asking about the kitchen job. "I'm looking for a cook," Claire said, not looking up from her inventory sheet. "Someone who can handle breakfast rush and I can cook." The voice made her freeze. Not because she recognized it, but because of the way it sounded, quiet, careful, with just the faintest accent softening the edges. She looked up. He was different. Thinner. Hair longer, pulled back. Glasses perched on his nose. Wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans instead of expensive suits. Hands scarred in ways they hadn't been before. Burn marks, probably, consistent with an explosion. But the eyes. Those were the same. Her voice failed. Started again. "Do you have experience?"
Some.
"I'm good with knives," the ghost of a smile. "And I follow directions well." Claire's hands were shaking. She put down the clipboard before she dropped it. "References?"
No. I've been traveling.
Working cash jobs, he shifted slightly, and she noticed he favored his left side. The shoulder. Where he'd been shot. "I understand if that's a problem. What's your name?" A pause. Then, Ken Yamada. Yamada. His loyal lieutenant's name. Of course. "When can you start?" "Whenever you need me." Claire made herself breathe. Made herself professional. "Tomorrow. 5 a.m. We'll do a trial week, see if you fit." "Thank you." He turned to leave, and Claire's voice caught him at the door. "Ken?" He looked back. "Welcome to Rosie's." Something flickered across his face. Gratitude, relief, recognition. Then he nodded and left, and Claire sank into the nearest booth, her whole body trembling. He was alive. He'd come back. The next morning, Ken arrived 10 minutes early. He worked quietly, efficiently, learning the kitchen layout without complaint. He made perfect eggs, crispy bacon, pancakes that were somehow better than anything the previous cook had managed. Between orders, He cleaned with the kind of precision that spoke of discipline older than cooking. He never smiled, never made small talk with the other staff. Just worked, collected his cash at the end of each shift, and disappeared. But every morning when Claire opened the register, there was a new origami crane. Different colors, blue, green, white, yellow. Always placed exactly in the center of the cash drawer, folded with impossible perfection. She collected them in a jar beneath the counter, watching the collection grow. One crane for every day he stayed. One crane for every day they didn't acknowledge what they were doing. 3 weeks in, a customer complained his eggs were wrong. Claire went to handle it and found Ken in the kitchen, staring at the order ticket with an expression of such intense focus, she almost laughed. "Over easy, not scrambled," she said gently. He nodded, started over, and she noticed his hands were shaking. "You okay?" "I'm not used to," he gestured vaguely at the kitchen, the diner, the ordinary chaos of breakfast rush.
This.
"Normal. It's louder than I expected." Yeah, Claire leaned against the counter. "Normal is loud. Messy. Full of people who complain about eggs," she smiled. "It's also safe.
Boring.
The kind of thing people take for granted until they can't anymore." "I don't take it for granted." "I know." Their eyes met, and for just a second, the masks dropped. He was Renji. She was Claire. They were two people who'd survived something impossible and somehow found their way back to where it started. Then the moment passed. He went back to cooking. She went back to managing. But that night, she stayed late to count receipts, and he stayed late to clean the kitchen, and when a last employee left, they were alone. Rain started falling.
Of course it did.
Claire stood at the window, watching water streak the glass, and heard him approach. He stopped beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. "I shouldn't have come back," he said quietly. "Why did you?" "Because I was tired of pretending to be dead when the only time I felt alive was with you." Her breath caught. "Renji." "Ken," he corrected gently. "Renji died in that explosion. Ken is just a cook who makes good eggs. And the cranes? Those are a reminder that some things don't die. They just transform." Claire turned to face him, and what she saw made her heart ache. Hope mixed with fear, love mixed with uncertainty, a man trying desperately to believe he deserved a second chance. "Welcome back, Renji," she whispered. He smiled. It was small, uncertain, the smile of someone learning how after years of forgetting. But it was real, the first genuine smile of his entire life, breaking across his face like sunrise after the longest night. "Thank you," he said, "for seeing me again." Outside, the rain continued its rhythm. Inside, two people who'd been ghosts stood in the warm light of a diner that had survived its own resurrection, learning together what it meant to be human. Not perfect, not safe, not without scars, but alive. Finally, impossibly alive.